This is Kate Swoboda, creator of YourCourageousLife.com, director of the Courageous Living Coach certification at teamclcc.com, and author of the book, The Courage Habit, which is available at booksellers and at Amazon. The Your Courageous Life podcast is all about going after what you want and creating and living a more courageous, emotionally resilient life. Might drop a couple of F-bombs, so maybe don't listen with your kids in the backseat of the car. And here we go with today's episode. Hey, everybody. I'd like to start today's episode by reading something that is attributed to Laura Kelly Finucci. Laura spelled L-A-U-R-A, Kelly spelled K-E-L-L-Y, Finucci spelled F as in Frank, A-N as in Nancy, U-C-C-I. And it is a poem, but I think it's really beautiful, and I imagine you might feel this way too. So here's what Laura Kelly Finucci writes. When this is over, may we never again take for granted a handshake with a stranger, full shelves at the store, conversations with neighbors, a crowded theater, Friday night out, the taste of communion, a routine checkup, the school rush each morning, coffee with a friend, the stadium roaring, each deep breath, a boring Tuesday, life itself. When this ends, may we find that we have become more like the people we wanted to be, we were called to be, we hoped to be, and may we stay that way, better for each other because of the worst. Wow, right? Times like these. Wow, 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 wow. So as I'm recording this, we're in week 2 of social distancing and school closures and scary news headlines and all of that. And I have another episode that I recorded earlier called Navigating an Uncertain World. And this episode is about watching what you make it mean. I want to offer a little bit of context for this particular episode. When I was struggling with clinical depression, an eating disorder, cutting, self-harm, suicidal ideation, I felt a real annoyance with anybody who suggested that I could in any way take control of my emotional health. And the annoyance happened because I tried that, was unsuccessful at that, and then basically went, who are these assholes telling me that it is actually within my control to monitor, manage, shift, reframe my emotional health? These people are just absolute jerks. It's unkind. It's cruel. And as you can imagine, probably by how I'm setting up the story, some stuff has changed around that. But I will say that I do still feel that it is profoundly unkind to not show up with empathy when people are struggling. I think it is profoundly unkind to just kind of flip a switch or indicate that someone could just flip a switch as if it's so easy. I think there needs to be a very real reckoning, a very real empathy for the fact that it's not that easy, that people struggle, and that these things take practice, and that as people practice, they will get up, they will fall down, and they will feel very discouraged, and that will be for a host of reasons that are both within and without their control. I do not think that when I was experiencing clinical issues with depression, anxiety, etc., that it was 100% in my control. There were absolutely social and environmental factors. I think there were even some biological factors. And it's been a profound turning point in my life to decide I'm not going out like that. And that's why I wanted to talk about watching what you make it mean. So hopefully I've set up enough context that for anyone who happens to be struggling with any of the things that I have just listed, whether clinically or as a result of the current stressful circumstances that we're under, that you will understand that these issues are so nuanced, okay? They're so nuanced, and no one has all of one answer. If I may soapbox for just a second, one of the things that drives me crazy about self-help is when somebody who has a system, a process, etc., that's been really, really helpful gets out there and is like, this is it. This is the thing. And the other things, God, I did that other thing and it didn't work, like kind of disparaging. And it's like, well, different things work for different people, right? In the same way that we all have different nutritional needs. And for some people, too much of one nutrient actually can set off a chain reaction of imbalance. But for somebody else, they actually need to dose more of a nutrient. I'm thinking of things like vitamin D right now. There are some people for whom like dosing supplementally of vitamin D would be no bueno, not good. And then there are other people for whom supplemental dosing of vitamin D is actually necessary for a chain link of other things to be processing well in their bodies. So in the same way that that's true for nutrients, wouldn't it also be true for self-help? There are some people who, they find a particular type of work and then they kind of write off all the work that came before it. And it's like, no, the work that came before it was like the soil that was allowing the seed of who you are to really germinate. And then the work you found now absolutely was super beneficial and is clearly, because you're so happy, what allowed that seed to actually come to full bloom. But that doesn't mean we disregard all the other stuff. So as I'm talking about anything that I'm talking about today with watching what you make it mean, of course, there are nuances. Of course, everything I would say here doesn't apply to everyone. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. So I'm not diagnosing either. I'm sharing my experience, and you get to take what you like and leave the rest. In other words, you get to watch what you make it mean. Watch what you make it mean has been one of the most powerful phrases in my life. I first heard it from Yvonne Dutra St. John of the Challenge Day organization. And she too was someone who had struggled with a lot of different things in her background. You can find her story pretty easily. And what I will say is that, again, when I first started to look at this concept of watch what you make it mean, I would really feel pissed off at people who would suggest such things. I remember feeling annoyed with Yvonne. I thought that the world was divided between people who were clinically impaired, for lack of a better word, and happy people. I thought there were just like this, there were all these happy, optimistic people who just had an easy time skipping through life. And then there were people like me who were just like, had the bum DNA and nothing much to do about it. Well, as it happens, we're learning more and more about epigenetics, which is the turning on and off of certain genes, factors that have a play in how we feel. We're learning more about neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, serotonin. The book Lost Connections by Johann Hari, Hari, has been profoundly insightful on that front. We're learning more and more, too, about the impact of our behaviors on our thoughts and our thoughts on our behaviors through MRIs and other ways of being able to see things we previously could not see in terms of brain activity. And here is what the research is all indicating, that absolutely there is a component over which you may not have control, and that could be socially, circumstantially, your finances, the levels of oppression you're experiencing on a daily basis, and of course, your genetic or biochemical background. And there is absolutely an impact that you can have on how you feel day to day when you decide to do things like watch what you make it mean, which is an example of what is called in psychology cognitive reframing. You absolutely can use mindfulness-based interventions for trauma, for anxiety, Here's the tricky part, though, in my experience. At first, we suck at them. At first, when I was going, okay, that's it. I'm gonna do some meditation, and that's gonna help with my anxiety. The first time I ever did real meditation, other than just taking a couple breaths, like a structured meditation, I felt like I was going to crawl out of my skin. I thought it made the anxiety worse. I was like, who are these crazy motherfuckers who are like doing meditation and telling other people to do it? They are crazy. It is awful. By the way, now I'm a meditation teacher for Simple Habit. Are you laughing with me? I hope you are. The first time anyone told me that going into some of the emotion and crying it out or screaming into a pillow was going to be helpful for discharging an excess of emotion, I was like, you're crazy. I am barely holding on to feeling happy in my life. And you are telling me that I would benefit somehow from like crying and screaming into a towel? And I mean, a host of other things, cognitive reframing. I felt almost venomously irritated at anybody who said, how might you reframe that in a more positive direction? I was like, who are these annoying, freaking happy people who just don't get it? Well, here's what else the research is revealing. That these annoying, freaking happy people, air quotes, they are often doing a shit ton of work to be happy, to keep on an even keel. And I have to say, having walked across that bridge, with one side of the bridge being how awful I felt, and the other side of the bridge being where I stand today, that is absolutely my experience. I have worked for every single inch of my own psychological, emotional health, well-being, and resilience. It has been intentional. It has been conscious. I cannot remember any time in my life, for as far back as I think into my childhood, of any time when I was just like a really chill, happy, look on the bright side, optimistic, yeah, kind of person. What excites me is to see that I feel that way now, for the most part. Of course I have hard days. Of course I drop the F-bomb. Of course I get frustrated at my partner. Of course I have things come up. But again, this is the whole gig here around Your Courageous Life. The fear is not going to go away. The bad stuff of life does not go away. We are not going to bubble wrap our existence with enough trigger warnings. We have to learn strategies for emotional resilience. And again, that comes back to what I will share from my own experience of just deciding, I'm not going out like this. I think there's something powerful about watching what you make it mean. If I am watching what I make it mean at this moment in our history, what I am doing is I am monitoring intentionally and frankly shutting down future tripping up over what might or might not happen in the future, catastrophizing. And do I have more or less success with that on some days? Of course. But I don't know, I'd say about 90% of the time these days so far, I'm doing okay with going, no, stop. I watch what I make this mean. I am not jumping to what might happen 6 or 8 weeks from now. I am not jumping to sickness. I am not jumping to meltdowns. I'm not. And the reason I'm not is because I find my sanity in deciding, here's what I can do in this moment right now. That's all I have control over, my intentions and where I place my attention, watching what I make it mean. Why do I want to spend my time and my mental energy catastrophizing about what if I got sick or my family got sick, when in fact, right here and right now, I'm healthy. I'm doing great. So now let's talk a little bit about watching what you make it mean in the online space, because I've been noticing that it's usually not too much of like throwing shade around directly, but I'm noticing that there are more and more conversations popping up where people are annoyed or upset with those who are talking about cognitive behavioral strategies as interventions for managing the stress that you feel. And I think that this is one of those times where we need to remember that, and this is part of watching what you make it mean. We need to remember that when person A says, no, this is the mindfulness-based approach that I took. This is what we all need to be doing right now. We need to be getting mindful. That's them talking about their experience, and they're advocating it because they've found it helpful for them. And if person B says, no, I think it's really about your self-talk, that's person B's lens on life and what they're advocating because it's been effective for them. And if somebody else says, no, this is not the time to sit on your couch. This is the time for activism. We need to be doing everything that we can to change the system, to try to usher in things that are going to protect us from future pain. That is person C's lens on life. And none of these people are wrong. None of these people are wrong. These are all possible strategies for coping with what we're all feeling right now that we could be using, but that is that person's lens on life. What I would invite all of us, all of you listening to this, and this is what I try to practice in my own life, is to watch what you make it mean, particularly around any parts of you that get prickly if someone is encouraging optimism, hope, gratitude, presence. And that might surprise you. You might be like, what do you mean? People are getting prickly about that? Yeah, people are getting prickly about that, and you're going to see more of it. If someone is encouraging optimism or hope or gratitude or presence at times like these, and you bristle, or if you are someone trying to share a message that involves some level of hope, optimism, presence, gratitude, etc., and you notice that people are bristling, watch what you make it mean. Particularly if you bristle, question that. I mean, I just think about this for myself because, it's like, why? And these were entry point questions for me, shifting the old way of just being dismissive of those practices because I had not found that they had been helpful. So when someone was really optimistic during difficult times, I paused and I asked myself, why would optimism annoy me? What's that about? Because if you think about it, what is so wrong with optimism? Or why would I feel almost compelled to write a kind of snarky comment, something sarcastic, in response to someone expressing hope? We've probably all been those people on Facebook before who have written the snarky comment. We've also probably all been somebody who put a post out that was hopeful and somebody comes along and does kind of their wet blanket thing of like, wow, they're not even thinking about da-da-da. And you're just like, thanks a lot for that. Nope. Why would that be the response? This is the piece to get curious about. How can you watch what you make it mean? Or what about expressing gratitude at times like these? Why would it bother you to see someone else expressing gratitude? Or if you have been someone who has been trying to focus on gratitude and somebody's coming along like annoyed with you for that, you could consider, what would have someone respond in that way? And I'm asking you to consider it from both sides because I think that polarizing is not particularly helpful. So if you are someone who is bristling when other people are expressing these messages of hope, optimism, etc., that is worth looking at. If you are someone expressing messages of hope, optimism, etc., and somebody bristles at you, and then you go straight into making it mean, I need to judge them, they are bad, etc., like neither of these responses are helpful, which is why I'm pulling at both ends. So what about expressing gratitude at times like these might bother me so much? That is a question. Why do I dismiss getting present as a strategy? Only you know your answers, so I'll just share mine. I'm going to take these piece by piece because I was thinking about this beforehand. I got my little piece of paper here with my notes because I really was trying to think about what was that about for me at that time. And with optimism, it used to annoy me when people were being optimistic because I had tried adopting optimism before and I wasn't very successful at it. It felt like lying to myself and I felt disappointed and almost sort of betrayed that the strategy of adopting optimism hadn't worked out. So I reacted with being really annoyed with people who are optimistic. And that annoyance was a kind of armor. I didn't realize this, of course, consciously. It was investigative work into my past. It felt easier to put on the armor of annoyance. Oh, those like sparkly, happy people. Oh, always being so optimistic. They're so naive. Well, that was an expression of my own feelings of really having felt betrayed by past experiences of being optimistic. Now, was there real betrayal happening when I was optimistic? No, there was disappointment, there was hurt, there was vulnerability that I felt because I had tried to be optimistic and maybe things hadn't worked out the way I'd hoped. I felt snarky around, speaking of hope, messages of hope. I felt snarky around messages of hope because hope felt really untrustworthy, really naive, really fickle. Who are these ridiculous people who are being hopeful? Hope is not a strategy. Well, let me tell you something. I agree that hope as your only tool in your toolbox isn't a full toolbox, okay? Like, we do need hope. We also need roll up your sleeves, wash those hands, okay? Like, we need hope. We need it in conjunction with other things. But what I will say is that in the past, I felt snarky around people who expressed, let's be hopeful, because I just felt like, and again, this wasn't conscious. This is only when I sat down and really tried to break down what was going on for me. I realized that I thought hope was not trustworthy. I had hoped before and been disappointed before. So again, being snarky, pushing it away, that was my form of armor. I was bothered by people who would encourage others to be grateful during difficult times. I mean, when I deconstructed that one, I thought, yeah, I remember feeling like, because I remember seeing it on Oprah, and Oprah's, big on like make a gratitude list and stuff like that. So we're thinking 90s here, dating myself here. And I remember feeling like I just wanted to shout, don't you see the pain that I'm in? Don't you see that I don't have things to be grateful for? And I carried a kind of secret shame about that too, because I also knew that, yes, of course I understood that running water, electricity, a roof over my head, those are all things to be grateful for. It could always be worse. So I felt kind of guilty because I was suffering so much emotionally and didn't feel I could connect to gratitude. And yet I knew that there were things that I should, air quotes, should feel connected to gratitude for. So again, shouting, pushing back, that's armor. And I dismissed people getting present in part because of my, as I said earlier in this podcast episode, my experience of trying to meditate and feeling like these people are crazy. I can't tell you enough how much as soon as I started getting quiet, I just felt like every thought I had ever had in my life suddenly was like, hey, I just showed up to the party. Like, here you are supposed to be focusing on your breath. And every thought is like, I'm here, ready to be thunk. So I dismissed getting present because I couldn't do it. At that time, I couldn't do it. So I made it mean this must not work. I made it mean these people are wrong. I made it mean I'm never going to try that again and get my hopes up again. I made it mean this is not a strategy that will be effective for me. I also made it mean, oh shit, I have fewer and fewer strategies. And that was scary. But what if we stop and we pause and we go, wait, let me watch what I make it mean? What if we reframe that paradigm? Just because a personal growth approach hasn't made you feel better in the past doesn't mean that it's without merit. What I found with enough exploration was that it was my fear that would cause me to dismiss those other options. It was like trying something like hope or presence and not feeling very skilled at it, inner critic yelling at me about how stupid I was to be getting my hopes up again. So I don't do it so well because I'm new at it. I'm not very skilled at it. I had this perception, and I think it's a very common perception, that hope and optimism and gratitude and presence and all of these things as tools Well, first of all, we don't think of them as tools. It's a very common perception that people are just born with them. And then when we do think of them as tools, we think, oh yeah, gratitude, that should be easy enough. I'm thankful for. And then we don't feel emotionally connected to it. So then we're even more disappointed. And then the drums of fear really start getting loud, because those drums of fear start saying, okay, all these things that other people are saying were helpful or effective for them don't work for you. You are uniquely messed up. Now, that was my own story about what was going on, and I share it so transparently because I'm hoping that it might provoke some insight for somebody listening to go, wait a second, maybe it's not that I'm inherently, if you've shared similar beliefs, maybe it's not that I am inherently messed up. Maybe it's that I just don't have this down yet as a skill. And a skill can be learned. That is the best part to me about being a human, that we are not defined. You are who you say you are. And at any moment, there can be a fork in the road where you decide, what I will make it mean that I am walking through a worldwide pandemic is I will show up in this way. I will be this kind of person. And it does not matter who you were yesterday. It matters who you are deciding to be right now. It does not matter what you were making it mean yesterday. It matters what you are deciding to make your life mean now. So I ask you, in the midst of a worldwide pandemic or whatever stress happens to be up at the point when someone listens to this, it's my greatest hope that a year from now or 2 years from now, when different challenges are afoot, this is still relevant and helpful. So what do you want to win? Your fear? Because the dismissal of hope or optimism or gratitude or presence as strategies, they're not the only strategies. I'm not saying don't call your representatives. I'm not saying don't wash your hands. I'm not saying don't prepare for whatever challenge is before you. I'm saying that taking action alone and just trying to approach your entire life and the hardships you encounter through logic is actually an incomplete strategy. The two go together. What are you doing with your internal mindset right now? Who do you want to win in the dueling voices that are in your head? How do you want to live? Do you want to live from a place of the voice within you that says, oh, those stupid people? Does that feel good to you? So who do you want to be? How are your current strategies working for you? Because if they're not working for you, as difficult as that might be to reconcile, to muster it up, to say, this isn't working for me, to go mentally to a space of this is going to be a catastrophe, if that's not working for you, you are empowered right now to change it. You're the one in charge of your brain. I realize that there are factors at play in your social worlds and in your biochemistry and in your circumstances that do have a very real impact on how you experience the world. I never would deny that. I'm also saying you are the one who gets to watch what you make it mean. For me, the strategies of presence and hope and optimism and dismissing those and happy people are just naive and stupid and I'm the realist, I'm pragmatic, like going into negativity and just like recycling those thoughts, not putting like a no on those. There was something sovereign that I had to pull together to say, no, it stops here. It stops now. I watch what I make it mean now. And then I go back into catastrophizing and then going, no, it stops here. It stops now. I'm not spending time in that. I am watching what I make it mean. In this moment, I choose to make it mean this. And people, let me tell you, I do it again. I go back into the negativity again. I do it all over again. 1,000,000 times I have practiced noticing where my brain was going with something and deciding very consciously, pause, hold, stop, let me watch what I make it mean. I am under no illusion that I can control the outside circumstances, that I am the ultimate arbiter of how world politics plays out. I am not at all saying right now that feelings of hopelessness and despair will never visit me. I'm saying when they do, again, that phrase, I'm not going down like that. That's me speaking for me. I'm not going down like that. I'm not going down from a place of, oh, well, guess this is how it is. No. Until I take my last breath, I am going to be a stand for watching what I make it mean and deciding that I am sovereign over my life. I get to choose what I think about. I get to choose where I put my energy. I get to choose my intention and my attention. And I would ask you to join me. I would ask you to decide that that's who you want to be in the world too. Because I think that the more of us who are deciding that that's who we want to be, the more we find our internal resilience. Watch what you make it mean has meant curiosity. It hasn't just meant jumping to a reframe and I'm going to be positive. That's what it's going to be. No. I'm watching what I make it mean. That's how I have the insight that I do about why optimism used to chafe at me, just being like annoying, like, oh, those happy people. Ugh. Watching what you make it mean is developed as a skill, as a tool. It's not about you're going to turn around and tomorrow you got it all figured out. It's moment to moment to moment, however many times it takes, coming back to, I'm going to watch what I make it mean. I'm the one in choice about where I place my intention and my attention, how I respond. I am going to choose to respond, not react. And last, you will get better at this over time. You will. You can grow. It is possible to learn new things. So at first, yeah, there's a lot of falling on your butt and a lot of going, I suck at this, and the inner critic coming up, and then you take a deep breath and go, critic, I hear what it is you have to say. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. You want to talk to me, critic? It's got to be respectful. Yes, in case anybody was unaware of this, I talk to the voices in my head. The critic voices, yeah. Because the critic is a wound, and I want to work to heal it. And I have other podcast episodes where I talk more about what that process looks like. You get to watch what you make it mean. And the last thing I'll say about that is with all online messages, two things. One, it's my business what I get offended by, meaning it's not somebody else's responsibility to change the things that they are saying so that my life can be bubble wrapped and I'll never get offended. It's my business what I get offended by. And of course, I would hope, I say of course, but geez, these days online, who knows? Now, do I think that there is a place for hate speech and KKK and stuff like that online? No, I don't think, no. I'm offended by that, and I think it's hateful, and I think it needs to be stopped. But I'm talking about what I've been talking about this entire podcast episode, which is if somebody else is super happy and optimistic in their outlook, and I'm offended by that, like how can they be that way given the people suffering, how insensitive they must be? That's my business that I got offended. I'm in choice about my reaction. And second, when I feel offended by something, when something someone is saying irks me in some way, I see it as an opportunity to get curious. It might be that it irks me because I am looking at this person and going, this person is massively out of integrity, and I need to just remove myself from that person's space. That's a valid choice to make. But I want to get curious about why before I jump to reacting. In many ways, watch what you make it mean. The gift of it is that it prompts you to pause, to stop, to slow down, to actually go, what am I making this mean? Where am I going with this? and why? What is my story, my lens on the world that I would go to that place? Doesn't mean you have to change your story. I am not saying there's something wrong with your mindset. That's the other thing that I hear people talking about. Oh, they just talk about how you just got to change your mindset. I'm not saying anybody has to change their mindset. I'm saying get curious and listen in to what's happening for you inside. And if it's working for you, keep doing what you've been doing. If it's not working for you, if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're not happy with how you feel as you navigate some of this, what are some things that you might utilize to relieve some of that stress? Now, in navigating an uncertain world, in a podcast episode I did on regulating emotion, I talk about some strategies for that. I believe very much in what I call conscious crying. You can search at yourcourageouslife.com. You can go to Google and type in yourcourageouslife.com and conscious crying, and you should come up with the blog post where I wrote about that. I think we need tears. I think we need gentleness. I think we need to scream into pillows and hit things because our elected officials have botched many aspects of what's going on right now. And of course we're angry, or we're home with the kids and it's too much, or we're, like all kinds of things to be angry at right now. I probably don't need to add to the list, but I think we need to feel what we need to feel. And I think we need to get curious about how we are habitually responding. And we can do that with a tool like watch what you make it mean. And then the last thing I will leave you with is, again, what I started off this podcast episode with was that little poem by Laura Kelly Fanucci. And I really feel like what she wrote there is a call for all of us to go, who do I want to be amid all of this? So that is the question I leave for you to contemplate. Who do you want to be right now? Do you want to be the person who checks in with friends? How are you doing? Do you want to be the person who comes along and when somebody writes something on Facebook, you're like, oh, that's really inappropriate right now? Who do you want to be? Because none of us actually really are thinking about who you were yesterday. We're mostly thinking about who you are in the here and now. And again, right now is as good a moment as any to decide I'm changing something. There's no better moment. It's right now. It's always been right now. I send all of you so much love and wish for everyone so much care. I mentioned a little bit ago that I'm a teacher for the Simple Habit app. It's a meditation app, and I have a number of meditations on there for how to navigate fear. Lots of different resources out there right now for navigating and managing fear. The Courageous Living program is just one of them. And you can learn more about that at courageouslivingprogram.com. And then, of course, so many podcast episodes. This is episode 62, if you can believe it. So I've got hours of podcast content for you if you're stuck at home and want different ways to think about, releasing old fear-based habits and how you want to shift your life to be more courageous and more resilient. This is a skill. Anyone can learn it, and you can too. Pretty cool to think about. Sending everybody so much love. We're all in this together. You're not alone. We're going to make it through. All right, that's today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You know you can continue the work and the fun if you want to. Head on over to yourcourageouslife.com/begin and become a Your Courageous Life subscriber, because as soon as you sign up, you get access to an entire library of worksheets and audios and other bonuses. And of course, you'll be receiving more courage in your inbox. And who wouldn't love that? You can learn more about the Courageous Living Coach certification at teamclcc.com. You can get the Courage Habit at your local bookseller, on Amazon, wherever you like. We can even connect on social media. I'm on Facebook at Your Courageous Life. So look for facebook.com/Your Courageous Life. And I'm on Instagram as Kate Courageous. And I'd love to connect with you on Instagram. So here's to you using these courageous tools in your life and creating a real ripple effect of good. And again, thanks so much for listening. I love it that you're here.